My parents said they had no room for me, then let my cousin move in. So I never returned, and they regret it every holiday. I've always been the one who didn't fit in my own family. Not the rebel, not the troublemaker, just the extra piece that never quite belonged. My parents used to say they loved us both the same, but somehow their tone always softened when they talked to Mia. She was the miracle child, born after years of trying, as they liked to remind everyone. I was the test run, the one who learned early that affection had to be earned, and silence kept the peace. I grew up watching them beam with pride at every little thing Mia did. When she got a B on a test, it was, she's trying her best. When I got an A, it was, well, that's expected. I told myself it didn't matter, that being dependable was its own reward. But deep down, it chipped away at me, piece by piece. When Dad lost his job 2 years ago, things got tense. Arguments about bills filled the house like background noise. Then one night, over dinner, Mom said they'd decided to downsize. Just until things stabilize, she promised. I nodded, pretending to understand, because what else was I supposed to do? A month later, boxes filled the hallway. My posters came down, my books disappeared into storage bins, and my room, the one I grew up in, was suddenly a shared space. Mom said it gently like it was no big deal. "You're barely home anymore," she reasoned. "It makes sense for Mia to use your room for her studies." I told myself it was temporary. That once Dad got another job, I'd have my space again. But the truth was, I saw the way they looked at me, like I'd already outstayed my welcome. I didn't realize then that conversation wasn't just about space. It was my eviction notice in disguise. When I came home for winter break, something felt off before I even stepped inside. The porch light was dim. The air inside smelled like fresh paint, and when I walked down the hall, I realized why. My room wasn't my room anymore. The walls were painted pale pink. My old desk was gone. Mia's vanity sat where my bed used to be, and my things, everything from childhood photos to my college textbooks, were stacked in boxes by the garage door. I stood there in silence, my heartbeat thudding in my ears. "Mom?" I called. She appeared with that same polite smile she used when she didn't want to argue. "Oh, honey, we meant to tell you sooner. We just don't have the space anymore. Mia needs her own room, especially with exams coming up." I tried to laugh it off, but my voice cracked. "So where am I supposed to sleep?" Dad looked up from the couch without even muting the TV. "You're an adult now, son. You'll figure it out." That sentence hit harder than anything he'd ever said. I stared at them, waiting for someone to backtrack, to say it was temporary. No one did. Mia peeked out from the hallway, wide-eyed and silent, then shut her door behind her. So that night, I crashed at my friend's apartment across town. He offered me his couch, but I barely slept. I kept replaying every small memory of that house. The way Mom used to call me her rock. The nights Dad would pat my back after a tough day. I realized those moments weren't love. They were convenience. They didn't push me out because they had to. They did it because it was easy, and I told myself it was fine. I had a place to stay, a job waiting when classes resumed. But lying awake on that lumpy couch, I couldn't stop thinking. If family love can vanish this fast, was it ever real to begin with? It had been a few months since that night. I'd started to settle into my new reality. Classes, part-time work, the occasional text from Mom asking if I was doing okay. The messages were polite, distant, almost businesslike. I told myself that was fine. I didn't want to be a burden anyway. Then one afternoon, I got a call from my aunt. Her tone was casual. "Hey, your mom mentioned Jason's moving in with them for a bit. That must be nice, having your cousin around again." I froze. "Wait, Jason's moving in? With my parents?" "Yeah, didn't she tell you? He's between jobs. They're helping him out." My stomach dropped. After I hung up, I just sat there, staring at the wall. I scrolled through old messages from Mom. Nothing. Not one mention. So I called her. She picked up on the second ring, cheerful. "Oh, sweetheart." "How are you?" "I'm fine," I said flatly. "Aunt Lisa said Jason's living with you now." A pause. Then a nervous chuckle. "Oh, that? It's just temporary. You know how he's been struggling since his breakup. He needed help getting back on his feet. I waited for her to realize how absurd that sounded. You told me there wasn't room for me. Her voice hardened just slightly. Jason's family. He needed us. I'm family too, Mom. Silence. Then a sigh. You're independent. You don't need us anymore. That's a good thing. That line replayed in my head long after we hung up. I wasn't angry yet, just hollow. I scrolled through social media that night and saw it. A photo of my parents and Jason at dinner, smiling like a picture-perfect family. Jason was wearing my old hoodie, the one I'd left behind. For the first time, I understood. This wasn't about space or circumstance. It was about who they wanted to make space for, and it wasn't me. A few weeks later, I told myself I'd stop being bitter and just clear things up face to face. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe Jason was just crashing for a few days. So I drove the 2 hours home one Saturday morning with a bag of groceries and the stupid hope that they'd be happy to see me. Jason opened the door. My door. He was wearing my hoodie, the faded blue one Dad bought me in high school, and holding a mug that said, "World's Best Son." I'd given that mug to Dad years ago. Jason just smiled like nothing was wrong. "Hey, man. Long time." I stepped inside and it hit me like a gut punch. My desk was covered in his stuff. Video game controllers, soda cans, piles of clothes. My bookshelf was half empty, replaced with his things. Even the smell was different. Cheap cologne and energy drinks where my room used to smell like sawdust and laundry detergent. Mom appeared from the kitchen, all smiles. "Oh, look who's here." "We were just talking about you," I forced a smile. "Yeah? Funny, you never mentioned Jason moving in." Dad barely glanced up from the TV. "We told you we didn't have space. Jason's here temporarily." "Temporarily," I repeated, like the room I was supposed to share. Mom frowned like I was being ungrateful. "Don't make this about you. Jason appreciates what we do for him. You never did." Something in me cracked then. Not loud, just quietly, like a thread finally snapping. I realized I could stand there and argue all day, and it wouldn't matter. They'd already decided who deserved a place in that house. So I put my bag down, turned around, and walked out. No yelling, no scene, just silence. As I closed the door behind me, Mom called after me, "You'll regret walking away from family." But I didn't look back, because deep down, I already knew. I wasn't walking away from family. I was walking away from people who made me feel unwanted in my own home. The night I left that house for good, it felt like something inside me had finally gone quiet. No more waiting for them to notice. No more hoping for an apology that would never come. I crashed back on my friend Ryan's couch again, but this time it didn't feel temporary. It felt like starting over. The next few months were survival mode. I picked up extra shifts at the hardware store, started freelancing odd repair jobs around campus, and slowly saved enough to rent a studio apartment. It wasn't much, a leaky faucet, flickering light, and a mattress on the floor. But it was mine. Every nail I drove, every box I unpacked, felt like proof that I could build something without anyone's permission. Still, nights were the hardest. There were moments I'd catch myself scrolling through family photos, seeing them at dinners or parties, laughing like nothing had happened. Mia would text sometimes, short, clipped messages like, "Mom says you're being dramatic," or "You should come visit." But her tone carried that same quiet superiority she learned from them. I stopped replying. One evening, Ryan found me sanding down an old coffee table I'd picked up from the curb. "You know," he said, "you could sell these. You've got skill, man." That small comment lit something in me. Maybe he was right. Maybe I didn't need to keep fighting for scraps of approval when I could create my own worth. I started a small online page to showcase custom woodwork. Orders trickled in. Slowly at first, but enough to keep me going. For the first time, I felt something my parents never gave me. Peace. I wasn't thriving yet, but I wasn't begging for belonging either. And late one night, sitting in that small apartment surrounded by sawdust and silence, I made a promise to myself. If I couldn't belong to them, I'd build a life they'd have to watch from the outside. It had been nearly a year since I left home. My business was small but steady, And for once, I wasn't waking up with that heavy feeling of being unwanted. Then one night, I got a call from Mia. I hadn't heard from her in months, so I almost didn't answer. Her voice was shaky. "Jason's gone," she blurted. "He took Dad's credit cards, emptied Mom's savings account, and disappeared." I sat there in stunned silence. "Wait, what?" "Yeah," she said, sniffling. "They're freaking out. They don't know what to do. Mom keeps saying she should have seen the signs." I almost laughed. Almost. I could picture them, pacing around the living room they'd once told me had no room for me, realizing the man they'd chosen over their son had gutted them. Part of me wanted to say, "Now you know how it feels to be used and discarded." But I didn't. I just said, "That's rough, Mia," and hung up. The next day, Dad called. His voice was calm, but I could hear the exhaustion underneath. "Hey, son. Just wanted to check on you." I waited for the real reason. It came after a long pause. "We're going through a rough patch right now. If you could help out, just a small loan until we figure things out." There it was. The same man who once told me, "You'll figure it out," now asking for help. I didn't yell. I didn't even hesitate. "Sorry, Dad. I'm figuring things out too." Then I hung up. Afterward, I sat at my workbench staring at the half-finished table I'd been carving. My hands were steady, but my heart was racing. For the first time in years, I felt powerful. It wasn't revenge, it was clarity. They didn't lose money. They lost the one person who would have never betrayed them. After that call, I went completely silent. No texts, no visits, no checking in through relatives. For years, I'd been the one to reach out to bridge every broken conversation. But this time, I let the distance grow. I let them feel it. The first holiday season hit harder than I expected. I'd scroll through social media and see everyone posting pictures with their families, matching pajamas, dinner tables full of laughter. Then I'd see Mia's posts, her with Mom and Dad, the table smaller now, the smiles tighter. There was always an empty chair in the corner. I didn't need to ask who it was for. Instead of going home, I spent Christmas with Ryan's family. His mom hugged me like she'd known me her whole life. His dad asked about my business, genuinely interested, not out of obligation. When they handed me a plate and said, "Your family here," I had to excuse myself for a minute just to breathe. It hit me how different warmth feels when it's real. Work became my therapy. I expanded my shop, built better furniture, took on bigger commissions. Every order, every satisfied client was another brick in the wall between me and the people who taught me love had conditions. Sometimes Mia would text, "Mom misses you," or "Dad's been asking about you." But she never said "I miss you." That told me everything. So I stopped opening her messages altogether. I learned something powerful in that silence. Revenge doesn't always look like shouting or payback. Sometimes it's the sound of your phone staying quiet while they realize you don't need them anymore. And deep down, I knew they were starting to realize it. Because the louder their guilt became, the quieter I stayed. A year later, the silence finally broke. But not from my side. It started with a voicemail from Mom. Her voice was trembling, trying to sound warm, but I could hear the guilt tucked between every word. "Hey, sweetheart," she began. "It's been so long. Your dad and I were just talking about how we miss your voice around the house. You should come for Christmas this year. Things are different now." I played it 3 times, each time catching something new. The hesitation, the desperation, and that familiar manipulative undertone that always came when they wanted something. A few days later, she texted me photos, old family pictures, the 3 of us smiling when I was still naive enough to think love meant effort. Underneath, she wrote, "We're still your family. Please don't throw that away." For a moment, I felt that old ache creeping in. The part of me that still wanted to believe there was love buried somewhere beneath all the disappointment. But then, while scrolling through social media, I saw something that made my stomach turn. Jason. Back again. There he was, in a fresh family photo, standing beside them, arm around Mia, grinning at the dinner table like he never drained their accounts and vanished. The caption read, "Family always finds its way back." I laughed out loud, not from humor, but disbelief. They hadn't changed. They just wanted control again. That night, Mom called once more. I let it ring out. Then another voicemail came through, this time angrier. Ignoring us won't make you happy forever, you know. You'll regret pushing family away. I stared at the screen until the message ended. Then I blocked her number. No tears. No anger, just quiet resolve. Because I finally understood what they never did. You can't guilt someone into coming home when home stopped feeling safe a long time ago. 2 years passed before I heard anything more. By then, my furniture business had grown beyond what I ever imagined. I had my own workshop, a few local contracts, and enough clients that I didn't have to worry about next month's rent. For the first time in my life, I was content. Not happy all the time, but steady. And that was enough. Then one evening, Ryan forwarded me a message from a mutual friend back home. "Hey, thought you should know," it said. "Your parents sold the house." I read it twice. The same house they told me had no room for me anymore, the one they remodeled for Jason, was gone. A part of me wanted to feel something. Anger, sadness, nostalgia. But all I felt was distance. Later that week, Mia texted me out of nowhere. "Things have been hard. Dad's business fell apart, and Mom's not doing well. They talk about you a lot." I stared at the message for a long time. Once, that sentence would have broken me. Now, it just made me think of how many times I tried to talk about myself and they didn't listen. I asked, "Where's Jason?" She replied after a few minutes, "He's gone again. No one knows where. Of course he was." The irony wasn't lost on me. The son they pushed out was the one building a life, and the cousin they chose over me left them empty-handed. Word got around that my parents were renting a small apartment now, barely scraping by. Family members whispered that they missed me, that they wanted to fix things, but the truth was, they didn't miss me. They missed the version of me who tolerated everything. For years, I thought I was the broken one. Turns out, walking away was the only thing that finally made them see their own cracks. By the time I turned 30, my life looked nothing like what my parents predicted for me. I wasn't some lost kid crashing on couches or begging for approval. I owned my own home, small but quiet, filled with the smell of wood polish and the faint hum of a workshop downstairs. Every corner of it reminded me of something I built with my own 2 hands. I woke up early every morning to sunlight streaming through the blinds and coffee brewing in a machine I actually paid for. No more walking on eggshells. No more adjusting my voice to keep the peace. I didn't need to perform for anyone anymore. The business had taken off. Word of mouth, loyal clients, even a few interior designers who wanted to collaborate. Sometimes I'd get messages from old school friends. "Bro, you really made it." But the best part wasn't success. It was freedom. One evening, I got an email from a distant relative, someone from my dad's side I barely remembered. The subject line read, "Your parents want to talk." They wanted to reconnect, to heal as a family. They even offered to visit, to see the man you've become. But the message wasn't about pride, it was nostalgia wrapped in regret. For a long time, I stared at the screen, thinking about what to say. Then I realized I didn't owe them anything. Not forgiveness, not closure, not access to the peace I'd fought so hard to build. So I replied simply, "I'm glad you're both okay. But I'm not looking back." And that was it. No guilt, no anger. Just truth. I'd spent my entire life trying to earn a seat at their table. Now I had my own, and I finally understood why they'd never fit at it. That December, the cold hit early. The kind of chill that used to mean home, blankets on the couch, Mom humming in the kitchen, the smell of cinnamon candles. But now, it was just background noise to a life that finally felt peaceful. A week before Christmas, I got a text from Mia. "They're doing Christmas dinner at Aunt Lisa's this year. Mom keeps setting an extra chair. Says it's for you. She cries every time she puts it down." For a while, I just stared at the message. I could almost picture it. The table dressed in red and gold, the same laughter echoing through the house, only now it sounded smaller, emptier. Maybe they were trying to fill that silence with guilt. Maybe they really did regret it. Mia added, "You could come, you know. Just for dinner. No pressure." My fingers hovered over the keyboard, but nothing came out. What was I supposed to say? That I'd thought about it? that I'd imagined walking through that door and seeing them freeze, realizing I'd grown into the man they didn't think I could be. Instead, I just typed, "I'm glad you're all together. Hope it's a good night." Then hit send. That evening, I sat by my own small table, one I'd built myself, covered in simple dishes, a cheap bottle of wine, and a candle flickering in the quiet. A few friends came over later, filling the space with laughter that didn't feel forced, and for the first time, I didn't feel left out. I felt chosen by the life I created, by the people who stayed without obligation. Still, when I went to bed, I couldn't shake the image of that empty chair, not because it was waiting for me, but because they were finally realizing I wasn't coming back. It's been 3 years since that last message, and I still haven't gone back. Not once. Every holiday, I imagine them setting that same chair, clinging to hope like it's penance. But what they don't understand is that I didn't stay away to punish them. I stayed away to protect the peace I fought for. Sometimes, late at night, I'll catch myself thinking about the past. The smell of Mom's cooking, Dad's laugh when things were still simple, the sound of Mia playing music too loud. Nostalgia has a cruel way of making even pain look warm, but then I remember the silence that followed every time I needed them, and it fades. A few months ago, Mia called one last time. Her voice was softer now. "They're not angry anymore," she said. "They just wish you'd come home." I told her the truth. Home isn't a place, Mia. It's how people make you feel. And they made me feel like I didn't belong. She was quiet for a long time before whispering, "They know that now." Maybe they do. But the thing about regret is, it always comes too late. Now, every holiday, I host my own small gathering. Friends, neighbors, co-workers, people who became family without sharing a drop of blood. We laugh, we eat, we tell stories, and no one has to earn their seat at the table. That's how I know I've healed. As I sit there surrounded by the sound of real warmth, I sometimes glance at the empty chair in the corner of my dining room. Not for them, but for the version of me who once begged to be loved. He finally has a place here too. I end this story with peace, not bitterness. Because walking away wasn't revenge. It was the moment I stopped asking to be chosen, and chose myself instead.